So, just to get a sense of the people in the audience here, or is everyone familiar with blockchain, just in general? Michael?
Most of them, yes, but not so much about Telos.
Great. That was the next question. Just in terms of how familiar everyone is with the EOSIO protocol, and specifically the Telos blockchain. So essentially, Telos is the second chain of EOSIO. Most people are in the crypto space are familiar with EOS, but at the core is an EOSIO protocol that allows multiple chains to exist because there are various needs, and one chain cannot meet all of the world's cannot solve all of the world's problems. So we launched Telos with specific objectives and goals in mind. I joined the Telos launch group. Just to share a quick story, because there was a product that my company was developing on top of EOS protocol, and we around summer of last year experienced tons of resource related issues that pretty much prohibited us from launching our product. The cost of RAM and a few other governance related problems caused us to look elsewhere. But we loved EOSIO. We didn't want to leave that protocol and look for other chains such as Neo and so forth, right? So when Telos came along, it was a perfect fit for us. And just to give you a quick background, I run a software company called Fenero. I've been doing that for the past 6 years, and we're essentially a cloud-based call center software company. So if you've ever called into your bank and interacted with the automated system that says, please enter your account number followed by the pound sign and so on and so forth, we create that kind of software. We sell it to enterprises across the world. Likewise, if you've ever been harassed by a telemarketer, we enable that possibility. So we create telemarketing dialers as well, where individuals would, import tons of leads and dump that into our platform, and we do all of the automated dialing and so forth. And we do live chats. Actually, nutshell, Fenero creates cloud-based call center software for companies to interact with their customers and prospects. And our new product, which is called Qubicles, is essentially a talent network for finding customer service, sales, and support representatives. Because one of the biggest problems in the call center space is talent, right? It's a people business. So you want to have the best people on the phone. You want to make sure that your customers are happy. But it's very, very difficult to find talent. So we came up with this idea for a new product for Fenero called Qubicles that would essentially be driven by the blockchain, and it's a meritocracy-based system. So if you have 10 years of experience in customer service, we want to prove that, right? We want to see that on the blockchain. If you've taken courses, for example, on Walmart customer service, or how to sell effectively, all of that should be recorded on the blockchain. All of your awards, all of the certificates that you've taken should be recorded. Equally, if you perform well and you're one of the top performers, you're making the most sales every month for your company, that should be recorded. And finally, you should be automatically compensated and incentivized to keep doing a great job. And that's what Qubicles is here to do. It's here to create a meritocracy-based incentivization engine for contact center representatives, so that anyone wanting to launch a customer service business unit can go to this network, find talent, and automatically reward them for doing a good job on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And we're building that on top of EOSIO. But again, we ran into tons of resource issues with the main chain, and we decided to join the Telos launch effort. So that's a quick background on how we got involved into Telos. Now, along the way, we learned a lot from the EOS mainnet launch, a lot of the things that we should do, a lot of the things that we should not do. I recall when it launched, the wallets were still being developed after launch, meaning from day zero, a fully functional wallet didn't exist. It was still, they were still being developed, and a slew of other things that were sort of incomplete at launch of the main EOS chain. And on the Telos side, we wanted all users to have the ability to vote for block producers, to interact with the governance functions of the network. So to create worker proposals, to vote for arbitrators, to vote for the Telos Foundation Board, to send and receive tokens, just to perform, all of the critical actions that they would need to on the network. And that's how Sqrl came to exist. We had always been a fan of Greymass. Give shout out to Greymass, block producer on EOS mainnet, and loved their wallet. And so, as opposed to starting from scratch, we forked the Greymass wallet and started building Sqrl from that point on. And in addition to lots of user interface enhancements, we incorporated free account creation within Sqrl, which was a huge problem on EOS mainnet, where in order to even participate in governance and in the network's functions, you would need an account. However, the accounts aren't free. There's essentially RAM that needs to be purchased to create an account, and EOS that needs to be staked for CPU and network resources for those accounts. So with Telos, we essentially created a fund which currently has enough to create up to 2 million users for free on the Telos network. And we integrated that functionality into Sqrl. So just by downloading Sqrl, anyone can create a new account at absolutely zero cost to them and join the Telos network, which is just a huge advantage in and of itself over any other chains based on EOSIO. So in addition to the free accounts functionality, we also implemented governance features. So, voting for block producers obviously is one, but more importantly, we incorporated worker proposals, which is a concept that allows the chain to fund initiatives to further develop and enhance the chain, right? So if anyone who is part of the network wanted to create a new product that would benefit the network significantly, they could issue a worker proposal within Sqrl that would then be presented to all of the users on the chain and allow them to vote on those worker proposals. And if approved, those funds and Telos tokens would be distributed to the account and allow that individual or groups of individuals or entities to pursue their idea. And it's the first EOSIO worker proposal system that exists today. So we're really proud about working with the team on that. Another governance feature that Telos has out of the box is arbitration elections. So the idea of arbitration within a decentralized network is very complex. And what we did with the Telos group was created a set of smart contracts that allows users within the network to vote for arbitration candidates. So individuals with typically with a legal background can utilize Sqrl to submit their candidacy for arbitration on the network. And along with that, they would submit their credentials, essentially their resume, so that the constituents of the network could research and learn more about these candidates. And once the election begun, everyone could start voting for these candidates in this open election, which is, it sounds very simple and straightforward, but it's really historical. I mean, there hasn't been another on-chain arbitration election in the EOSIO ecosystem. So we're also the first to do that on the Telos network. And just a slew of other things. But in a nutshell, that's just a quick sort of high-level overview of how I got involved, and just slight differences with Telos and the EOS network and some of the problems that we're trying to solve. So but before I get into more details with Sqrl, did anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions? No questions.
Okay, great. So I'll share my screen here so that we can kind of walk through the Sqrl interface. And just let me know once you're able to see that, Michael.
Oh, yes, we see it now.
Okay, great. So this is the latest version of Sqrl, which is version 1.0.4. And once you download Sqrl, which you can download from the Telos Foundation's GitHub, that's the only source of Sqrl that there would be. So if you find any other additional downloads of Sqrl, the only official source you should trust is that from the Telos Foundation GitHub site. And once you've downloaded it, one of the first things that you're going to see when it launches is the connection selection page. That just allows you to choose the network that you would like to connect to. And as I indicated before, there are several chains based on the EOSIO protocol. That includes the EOS mainnet. There are various testnets as well. And then obviously the Telos mainnet and a few others that exist, such as Wordly, etc. So in this drop down here, Sqrl comes pre-programmed with the Telos and EOS mainnets and testnets. You can also select a custom node API. So in the event that you'd like to connect to another chain that isn't pre-programmed, such as a Wordly chain, you would simply enter the node API URL here to connect to that chain. But generally, Sqrl was designed to support a multi-chains on EOS, based on EOSIO. So for this case, we'll select the Telos mainnet and select connect to server. Now, there are two options. You can import existing accounts, or you can create a new account, as I explained earlier before with the free accounts functionality. Now, importing existing accounts are typically for users with an account from the EOS Genesis snapshot, which essentially means that all of the accounts that were migrated from the Ethereum ICO from EOS are considered the Genesis snapshot accounts. So if you have one of those, you will be able to import that account as long as you have your private key. Alternatively, you can create a new account here, which just brings up a simple wizard that asks for your account name, your owner key, and your active key. Now, the concept of owner and active is fairly straightforward. Think of the owner key as your master private key and your active key as the one that you utilize on a daily basis. So the owner key should never be shared with anyone, or your active key rather. However, you should make a decent effort to keep your owner key private and not exposed to any services, and utilize your active key on a daily basis. So in the event that something, if your key's lost, your active key is lost, you can always replace that with your owner key. So to create a free account is very straightforward. There's just a basic set of rules. It has to be 12 characters in length, only consists of the letters A through Z, lowercase, and the numbers 1 through 5. And as you enter the account name that you'd like, Sqrl would in real time do a lookup on the Telos blockchain to see whether the account exists and let you know. So for example, if I type in Telos Miami BP, Sqrl would tell me this account name has already been taken, right? But if I replace that with 11, this means that the account name is good. Then I just generate my public key for my owner. This arrow on the right is a key generation button that every time you click it, it creates a new key for you. And I'll do the same with the active key here. And once your keys are generated, your name is selected, it brings up the option to save your private keys. You copy those keys and save them in a safe place. Now, Sqrl does not save any private keys that's generated from the key generator. So you got to make sure that you copy and save your keys. Otherwise, we will not be able to help you recover it if in the event that they're lost. So you just click copy keys or already have keys, and by clicking keys are in a safe place, you're confirming that you've secured your keys and are prepared to go to the final step, which is to create your account. Now, I actually didn't save my keys there because I'm going to import an existing account, but then you just click create your account and that's it. Very simple. We wanted to make this as simple as possible, similar to how easy it is to create some of the common services that people utilize today, right? Like a Twitter or a Facebook, etc. So very simple to create an account on the Telos blockchain without the complexity that we've all been accustomed to with other blockchains. So to import an existing account, you'd simply come here and enter your public key or your account name and click look up account. Once the account's found, Sqrl is going to present the public key that it found that's associated with that account and ask you to enter your private key so that it could confirm that you actually own that account. Now, if you do not want to perform transactions that require signing on your wallet, so essentially you just like to connect to that account without entering your private key, which is called a watch wallet, you could do that simply by clicking this toggle button here. So again, a watch wallet will allow you to connect to that account, but you cannot perform any transactions. You can't send, can't receive, you can't vote. Any transactions that requires you to sign to prove that you are who you say you are, you cannot do that with a watch wallet. But it's a very simple way just to connect to your account and sort of look around. So I'll enter the private key here. Compare keys would simply verify that the key that you've entered matches the public key. So let me make sure that I've entered the correct key here. All right, I think I've got the wrong key. Just give me 1 second here. Apologize. 1 second. Just want to make sure I have the correct private key. Has anyone in the room utilized Sqrl? Or downloaded or utilized Sqrl in the past?
I did. It's very elegant. I know how hard it is to develop a wallet. It's very elegant, easy to use. I like it very much. I didn't know that it had all these features. I just used the basic one, import wallet, and just voted the block producers. But I didn't interact much. But I'm very glad you showed us all these features. It's very nice, very elegant.
Great. All right, so I think I have the right key here, so I'll share my screen again. Okay. So you'd enter your private key, click compare keys. There we go. You're going to be prompted to enter a local wallet password. So essentially that means if someone gets a hold of your laptop or your desktop, they would still need to know your password in order to get access to your wallet, right? So let's just enter that. Let's save the account. Okay, let's see. Now it's going to load the Telos Blockchain Network Operating Agreement. So you just scroll through that. This is also available on GitHub, as well as the docs tab within Sqrl. So once you've accepted the agreement, the constitution essentially, or the network operating agreement is what it's called in Telos. It takes you to the governance tab and lists the block producers that are currently in the network. Now, I'm not going to go into the concept of block producers and so forth, but essentially, Sqrl allows you to view and research each block producer and their position within the Telos network, as well as the number of votes that each block producer has and their website. So if you'd like to learn more about any of these block producers before voting for them, you can simply click on their website immediately below their name. So the first thing you'll see if you haven't voted for any block producers is essentially these check boxes with the dashes, right? So these are the block producers that you haven't voted for. For the block producers you have voted, on the left side, it will show the number of block producers in summary, and then each block producer here as well. So, and it's easy to remove them. So say, for example, you no longer want to vote for this guy or that guy, you can simply hit this sign to remove them. Once you've researched block producers and have selected the block producers that you'd like to vote for, just click submit vote for selected producers and submit votes, and that's it. All of the transactions here, or your selections here, would be submitted to the chain. Now, there's a lot of people who aren't, interested in researching block producers. So what they would prefer to do is proxy their vote to a group or an entity that they trust would select the correct block producers based on certain values. So the proxies tab in Sqrl shows all of the entities or individuals who have registered themselves as a proxy on the network. And again, a proxy would simply do the job of researching block producers for you and selecting block producers. And they usually have a certain number of criteria that each block producer needs to meet to qualify for their vote. But the proxies tab allows you to see all of the registered proxies, and just by clicking on the plus sign, you can learn more about more information about the proxy. So it tells you the name, the website, so you can research the proxy and their values. But this gives you a quick summary of their beliefs and their criteria for selecting block producers. So the slogan, the philosophy, the background, etc., can all be found here, as well as who they're currently voting for, right? So if you're not interested in selecting block producers yourself, you can just go here to select a proxy. Now, once you've found a proxy that you'd like, and you can only select one proxy to delegate your votes to, just click on this button. You're going to be presented with a pop-up that says, hey, are you sure you'd like to proxy your votes to this proxy? Once you confirm that, the transaction is going to go to the blockchain, and you'll be officially participating in the voting functions of the Telos blockchain. So again, block producers tab, that's for this independent voting. If you'd like to do the research yourself, the proxies tab is if you'd like to delegate your voting to an individual or set of individuals that you trust would select the block producers whose interests are who's focused on the best interests of the network. Now, the proposals tab, and again, we're proud to be the first chain to launch the work proposals on EOSIO protocol. This shows you any worker proposal that exists on the network, along with the time that the voting begins and ends, the amount of Telos that was requested, and how many cycles. So essentially that means how many times will that repeat once the first payment has gone out, who's requesting this proposal, the fee, and then the voting summary for that proposal. Now, one of the things that we're also leading and is in supporting IPFS in EOSIO. So Sqrl is the first app on Telos to integrate with the IPFS infrastructure that we're building, that's being built on Telos, which essentially means the governance documents, any worker proposals, any arbitration candidate CVs or resumes, any board member or board candidates CVs or resumes, and other docs, as shown here on the docs tab. These are all stored within the interplanetary file system of Telos. So we're the first chain to actually adopt IPFS in a real world, outside of just conceptually. And there's a lot more work being done on the IPFS side with Telos, which will allow global storage for virtual any types of documents with token incentives and payments as well. So again, just clicking on this document link in IPFS will take you to the summary of this worker proposal campaign, so that you could research more about it. And if you are a supporter, you can simply click yes to support, or no, or abstain your vote. And this, was something that we've simplified quite a bit, but there's a lot of functionality that goes into the worker proposal system in Telos. And as part of the design in these interfaces for Sqrl, we try to make things as easy as possible for users to interact with. Because one of the goals for any application, I think, that will be developed on blockchain should be to, present a user experience such that users won't necessarily know they're utilizing the blockchain, right? And that's one of the things that we try to do here. And creating a worker proposal is fairly straightforward as well. You can just click the Submit New Proposal button. It tells you the fee at the time, and you enter your title, select a document with detailed information about your proposal, and that's going to be submitted to IPFS. The amount that you're requesting, who will be the recipient, because the submitter may not necessarily be the one who received the funds, and then the number of cycles that this work proposal will be active. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we have one proposal here now. You can clearly see that, there's almost 1 million no votes versus 100,000 yes votes. So I doubt this one will pass. The arbitration is another Telos only governance feature, and this is all on chain, where, as I said before, legal candidates or just anyone really who thinks that they can contribute significantly to the arbitration process on the Telos blockchain can apply as an arbitrator. And it's very simple to apply. You would simply select your resume or CV, typically in PDF form, and click confirm, and that will submit your current account along with that PDF document to IPFS and register your account on chain as an arbitration candidate, and you will appear in this list below. Now, there's currently an arbitration election happening, so the candidacy section is closed for this election, and this is a 29-day period of voting for arbitration candidates. But essentially, this shows you how many seats are available, how many candidates are currently applying for the positions, and the I button next to each candidate will take you to the IPFS document, their CV or resume, for additional research. And candidate, you would simply click the checkbox next to the candidate, and that's it. Your votes will be tallied and computed along with the existing votes for that candidate. And the indicator on the right will let you know which ones you have supported and which ones you have not supported. Now, this is an ongoing election. The interface here will change slightly once the election completes and the votes are tallied. This Sqrl will show which candidates were actually elected as arbitrators, so that it's also easy for users to see who are the elected arbitrators on the Telos blockchain. So it's pretty slick. Now, the TF voting is a feature that essentially allowed users to vote for Telos Foundation board members, and it was simply another election. The first election was expired, and it shows the result of the election. As you can see, who were the members elected as board members. Sqrl will tell you that, so it's easy for you to utilize Sqrl to see who the elected board members are. And as you can see from my account here, since I was part of the process, it lets me know that I was also elected as a board member as well. So, what we're witnessing here is it's again simplified view into a very complex set of smart contracts for on-chain governance, right? For worker proposals, for arbitration, and for voting in elections. And again, we're just really proud to be the first chain to have this functionality and actually see it live and in the world and functioning the way that it was designed. And then finally, the docs tab, as I kind of briefly showed before, just shows all the various governance documents for the Telos network, from the network operating agreement to the arbitration rules. All of the documents here are just a single view, single source to view all of the various governance documents on the Telos network, all stored in IPFS. And that's the governance tab for Sqrl. Now, I would just quickly like to mention that, the options here are pretty straightforward. The first drop down allows you to switch between chains. So although we logged in initially to the Telos mainnet, we can always switch between any EOSIO chain that we support through this drop down. And as you select the drop down, you'll notice that the accounts selection would also change. And as you can see here, we didn't import any EOS mainnet accounts, so there's no selection options. But based on the chain that you have selected here, you will be allowed to switch between accounts on each chain. So that's the governance tab. The wallet tab is pretty straightforward. But before I proceed, did you guys have any questions about block producer voting or proxying or any of the governance functionality in Sqrl?
Marlon, I have a couple of questions. Is there a story behind the name Sqrl?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm not the originator of the name. I had sent Douglas a message, a private message saying, "Hey, what do you think about the wallet essentially, and what name do you think we should call it?" So he came up with a few, and he said, I think the second recommendation was Sqrl, and that instantly connected with both of us. So we said, you know what, I think the spelling and the name and everything fits perfectly with the Telos network, since the acorns and oak trees and that sort of lines up with squirrels. It just made perfect sense. So Douglas Horn actually is the gets the naming credit for Sqrl and the spelling as well.
Now, in that wallet, Marlon, I saw that there was your wallet ended with .tf, right? And I also saw some wallets with .erb. So these are domain names that are purchased, or is it an auction, just like EOS, or how does it work?
Yeah. So the members, and I believe that you guys have some as well, but there are special accounts that could be purchased through bidding. So, for example, if you wanted to have a suffix with .21, you would create you would bid for that name in the Telos network, the bidding system, and assuming no one else outbids you, if you win that name, you'd be allowed to create any account utilizing that suffix. So it's a pretty neat feature in the EOSIO world, that it functions essentially like a domain name system.
So is it active now, Marlon? So where do we bid for this? Can you do it through Sqrl?
No, Sqrl does not have the name bidding functionality yet. So you'd have to utilize a portal like the Telos Germany portal, I believe, can do that, if I'm not mistaken, and a few others. But I can, after this call, I can share with you, Michael, which portals I know that supports the name bidding system. And obviously it's also in the, for those who are more technically inclined to play with the command line, it's part of the core command line interface as well.
And the other question I had was about the referendum. I thought Telos already had a built-in referendum, right? Is it supported by the wallet, or how do we vote for referendum? Because on the EOS, I think we go to some EOS portal website, and there's all these uh, places where we can go and vote. Uh, how about in Telos?
So it's the work proposal system is built on a service called Trail. Now Trail is a built-in voting and election system that could be used to launch all sorts of referendum type services. Now, we didn't create an interface for general referendum submissions yet. We wanted to focus on worker proposals, arbitration elections, the Telos Foundation voting. But I'd say within the next 60 days or so, 60 to 90 days, that we would release the general referenda voting system. It's a discussion that we were just having recently. But to your point, it does exist. We just haven't created an interface that allows anyone to do that.
Yeah, Marlon, very cool. A quick question. Since 2 million people can create accounts for free, how do you keep somebody from writing a bot to register like 1,000 accounts and then get themselves elected?
It's a great question. So of course there are. I actually I'm the one who wrote the smart contract for the free account creation, and that's accessible on the Telos Foundation GitHub as well. But the smart contract is called free.tf. The smart contract has built-in protection mechanisms, primarily being whitelisting, right? So only accounts that have been whitelisted can call the free account creation contract. So that means if your account does not have permission to create free accounts with this contract, none of the transactions will work. Just as a basic example, when creating a free account within Sqrl, Sqrl is sending that contract a Sqrl approved account that is allowed to execute those transactions, right? So there's whitelisting protection. There's whitelisting protections. There's also rate limiting. So by default, we don't allow more than 50 accounts to be created per hour, just generally. And we also allow max account creation limits. So for example, if Michael said, hey, I have a portal that I've just developed called Telos Free Account Creator, and I'd like to partake in this 2 million account fund, how can I do that? So the first thing we'd have to do is Michael would need to create an account. Let's say, Michael account creator, and the Telos Foundation board would have to approve that account by adding it to the whitelist. And again, this is all done on chain, right? So the Telos Foundation would have to approve Michael's account to dip into the fund essentially, and then we would have to provide limits on Michael's account. The protections to say Michael can only create 1,000 accounts per hour, or 10,000 accounts per day, and Michael will also have to prove to us the Sybil protections that he created within his website, right? So what are you doing to make sure that your site isn't being abused, which in turn would abuse our smart contract. So there's a set of processes that are in place to help prevent that. Now, I would say when we first launched, we saw that we we saw several attempts by bots to abuse the smart contract creation tool, and we've fine-tuned it and made changes on the fly, somewhat to the detriment of the service, because we saw several comments from users saying, hey, we tried creating an account, but it says that we've reached the threshold for that hour. So it's getting better over time. But we're also expanding the options that are available, so that Sqrl isn't the only tool available for creating Telos free accounts, right? There's several others, I think 3 or 4 other tools in the pipeline that we're extending this functionality to once they've proven that they have the protections in place.
I have a question. I'm really interested in the IPFS. So how can a user upload a document to that, and how much control does the Telos Foundation have over content?
So with IPFS, the Telos Foundation has absolutely no control over the content. The nodes will be operated by individual block producers, just as the block producing nodes are today. So they're the ones responsible for running the IPFS nodes and supporting the infrastructure. So that's one. Two, it's very straightforward. I mean, there's a set of JavaScript APIs that you can utilize that will interact with the IPFS system, just as they're JavaScript APIs for interacting with the EOS chain. So it's very straightforward to do. The part that's being worked out now is the tokenization. Obviously, you don't want to create a generally accessible IPFS infrastructure where anyone and everyone can upload whatever they want without some sort of investment, meaning whether it's staking tokens or purchasing X amount of IPFS resources. So that the payment component, the resource component, is being worked out now by various block producing teams. However, Sqrl is the first to simply use it as a general storage, right? Because we did want to demonstrate that it could be utilized in real world EOSIO network, but there's a few things that are still being worked out.
So if someone were to post objectionable material like child pornography or terrorist propaganda, and they paid the right money, it couldn't be taken down?
Was the question that it could be taken down? Is that right?
Taken down off the IPFS?
So I think the question was, if there is some objectionable material on the IPFS, what can we do about it?
Well, it's we're not gatekeepers for this, right? So of course it most likely will be stored, because no one, the block producer's job isn't to gatekeep all the data that comes in and out of the network. But if it's reported, and when it's reported by someone, we would follow the process like we would with any sort of disagreement or conflict on a network, where the case is presented, and if 2/3 plus 1 of block producers agree that this is objectionable and shouldn't be part of the network, then they'd all vote, because again, it's an open system. There's no one block producer or individual that controls what happens. So yes, the information will be stored, but once reported or flagged, it'll go through the same process of any objectionable information that's on the network. Okay. Any other questions, guys? I think we're...
No other questions. I think we are almost close to time. What other features are there, Marlon, on the Sqrl wallet? I think we covered most of it, right?
Yeah, those are the main things. I think the wallet functions are pretty straightforward. The wallet functions and the tokens, managing custom tokens, I think I'll just kind of quickly go through those for you guys since we have a couple more minutes.
I don't know. Is you logged out? Have you logged out?
No.
Yeah. What can we bid in that? Like, is it like only cryptocurrency, or if it is only cryptocurrencies, like what are the types? Like types of currencies that they hold there? Like for bidding, like this Telos is for bidding, right? Like it's not.
It's a EOSIO-based blockchain. It's a blockchain itself. So the bidding was for the names. For that you need Telos. And it's a different website. But it's like a specific account name.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Okay, so just to kind of zoom through the rest here. Let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, right now it's...
Okay, great. So the wallet, I won't spend a lot of time here because the options on the left are self-explanatory, right? So this is where you sell RAM and buy RAM. This is where you send and receive tokens, and this is where you stake your tokens. So it's pretty straightforward. If you'd like to see any history on your account, you can just go to the history tab, and that'll show you, like, the last activity that I performed 16 hours ago was to vote in the election, for example. And the resources that are being utilized for your account can be displayed here as well. So this section is pretty self-explanatory. I think the tools, there are a couple areas that are noteworthy. One being the airdrops and custom tokens. So anytime there's a airdrop or a custom token that needs to be added, this is where you would go to do that. So, for example, we just recently did a Qubicles airdrop. If I wanted to see my balance of whether I received any Qubicles, I would just come here, and you'd need to know the contract information, the contract name and the symbol, and just add it. And it's going to give you information about that token, and there we go. So now I'm able to track. If I go back to my wallet, I'm able to track my Qubicle token balances as well. So that's something that you guys should be aware of. There's also app integrations. So essentially, you can sign transactions through various applications. And I'll quickly demonstrate that in a second. Blockchain networks is where you can go to add any custom blockchains that, let's say, it doesn't come with out of the box. And manage wallets is where you would go to import any other wallets that you have on any other EOSIO chain that's supported. And finally, permissions is where you could go to alter your permissions and to change your keys. All right, so those are some features that are noteworthy that you guys should be aware of that exists. I'd just like to show one last demo here, and we can finalize this. And it's it's the signing functionality that Sqrl supports. Give me 1 second. Okay, you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so Sqrl also allows you to interact with websites and sign transactions on those websites as long as they support the feature. So I'll go to one site, which is an exchange that I know supports it, eos-ex.com. So in this exchange, I can actually perform, here, let me log out, transactions securely without ever sending tokens out of my wallet. And it's called a DEX login. And I'll select the Telos network, click sign in with Sqrl. Once I click that, Sqrl automatically gives me a prompt that says, hey, this application is requesting your permission to connect. This doesn't share your keys. All your information is kept secure. This is simply giving the application permission to interact with Sqrl on your behalf. So I'll select the permission. Again, always work with your active key, and I'll approve. Now you notice that I'm in the exchange. Now that I'm in this exchange, I can actually perform transactions. Let's say if I wanted to sell Qubicle, for example, I would do so, click sell, Sqrl gets prompted. It says this application is trying to, it's requesting you to sign a transaction, and it gives you a summary of what's happening. You approve it, it goes through. But this is just a brief example of how Sqrl can also be utilized to sign transactions without ever sharing your public keys and private keys with any service. So in a nutshell, I mean, those are the core features I wanted to share with you guys today. There's a lot more, but those are core items. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go and download Sqrl and join the Telos revolution.
Well, thank you so much, Marlon. It's a pleasure to see you always. And it's a great work. You've done a great job.
Thank you guys so much, and thanks for the questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.